My name is Sophie. I am 29 years old. I always believed in love. I thought marriage was forever, but I was wrong. I met Daniel 5 years ago. He worked in the same office as me. He was friendly and kind. Every morning, he brought me coffee. Every afternoon, he asked how I was feeling. I smiled a lot when I was with him. He was not rich. He didn't drive a big car, but he made me feel safe. He made me laugh. He said I was special. I started to love him. I thought he loved me too. One day he asked me out. I said yes. We went for a walk in the park. We talked for hours. I felt happy. It was simple, but it felt right. After a few months, he asked me to marry him. He said he didn't want to wait. He said life was short. I was surprised, but also excited. I said yes. We had a small wedding, just family and close friends. He looked at me with warm eyes and said, "You are my everything." I believed him. I believed every word. We moved into a small apartment. I loved our home. It was quiet and clean. We didn't have much money, but I didn't care. I thought love was enough. In the first year, Daniel was sweet. He helped with cooking. He made tea when I was tired. On weekends, we watched movies and ate together. He often told me he was lucky to have me, but slowly, things changed. He came home late. He said he had more work. He started to check his phone in another room. He took his calls outside. When I asked questions, he smiled and said, "Nothing is wrong." He didn't help much at home anymore. When I talked, he didn't listen. He seemed far away, even when he sat next to me. I felt lonely. I started to worry. I asked him again, "Is everything okay?" He said, "Yes, just tired." I wanted to believe him. I wanted things to go back to how they were. One day, I made his favorite dinner. I cleaned the whole house. I wore the dress he once said he liked. I waited for him with hope. But he didn't come home. He came back very late. He looked surprised to see the food. He didn't even say sorry. He said, "I forgot," and went to take a shower. I felt sad, but I didn't cry. I just cleaned the plates and went to bed. At night, I stayed awake. I stared at the wall. My mind was full of questions. I thought maybe I did something wrong. Maybe he didn't love me anymore. One morning, I saw something strange. His shirt had lipstick on the collar. It was not my color. I held it in my hand for a long time. Then I put it back. I didn't ask him that day. I was too scared. But after that, I watched more closely. I saw perfume on his jacket. He never wore perfume before. He started using new words. He even changed his haircut. I was not stupid. I knew something was wrong, but I was still too afraid to speak. I thought maybe it would stop. maybe he would change. Then, one Sunday, he said he needed to go to the office, but it was quiet outside. I called the office phone. No one answered. I waited. I sat in the kitchen for hours. He came back in the evening. He looked tired, but also happy. I looked at his eyes. He smiled, but it was not the same smile I knew. I said, "Where were you?" He said, "I told you. At work." I wanted to shout, but I didn't. I just looked at him and said, "I called your office." His face changed, only for a second. Then he laughed and said, "I was in a meeting." I didn't believe him, but I didn't say more. I just went to the bedroom and closed the door. That night, I didn't sleep again. My mind was full of pain. I thought about our first days, the walks, the tea, the small jokes. I missed those days. I missed the man I married. The next day, I took a walk alone. I walked to the park where we had our first date. I sat on a bench and watched the people. I saw couples holding hands. I saw children playing. I felt like I was the only person there without love. I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to tell my friends. I didn't want my parents to worry. I just wanted the truth. When I went back home, Daniel was watching TV. He smiled and asked, "How was your walk?" I looked at him and said, "I know you are hiding something." He looked surprised. Then he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You are not the same. You don't look at me like before. You lie about work. You smell different. I saw lipstick on your shirt." He didn't answer for a moment. Then he stood up and said, "I think you're tired. You think too much." He left the room. I sat there. My hands were cold. My eyes were dry. I didn't want to cry anymore. I wanted answers. That night, I waited until he fell asleep. Then I took his phone. I didn't want to do it, but I had to know. I looked at his messages. What I saw broke my heart. There were many messages from one woman. Her name was Rachel. She called him my love. She sent him photos. She asked him when he would see her again. He told her, "Soon, my wife does not know." I stared at those words again and again. My wife does not know. He lied to me every single day. He told me he loved me, but he was with someone else. I put the phone back. I sat on the floor. I covered my face, but I did not cry. I just sat there in silence. That night, I did not sleep. I watched the sky turn dark. I watched it turn light again. And I knew something had to change. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. The next morning, I made tea. I put 2 cups on the table. Daniel came into the kitchen. He said, Good morning. I did not smile. I looked at his face. He sat down and drank his tea. I asked, "Who is Rachel?" He looked at me. His face changed. He said, "Why are you asking?" I said, "I saw your phone." He was quiet. Then he said, "It was nothing." I said, "Please tell me the truth." He stood up. He said, "It is a small thing. I made a mistake." I asked, "Do you love her?" He did not speak. He looked at the floor. Then he said, "I don't know." I felt cold. I looked at my cup. My hands were still. I said, "You lied to me." He said, "I did not want to hurt you." I said, "But you did hurt me." Then he took his bag and left the house. I sat alone. I did not cry. I felt tired. I looked at the door. He was gone. The house was quiet. I cleaned the cups. Then I went to the bedroom. I sat on the bed. I looked at the window. I asked myself many questions. Why did he lie? When did he start? What did I do wrong? In the evening, he came home. He said, "Can we talk?" I said, "Talk about what?" He said, "I want to fix this." I looked at him. "You were happy with her," I said. "No," he said. "It was just talking." I looked at him. I said, "You sent her pictures. You called her my love. That is not just talking." He looked down. He said, "I know. I am sorry." That night, I slept in the other room. I closed the door. I did not want to see his face. I turned off the light. I looked at the wall. My heart felt heavy, but I stayed calm. In the morning, I left the house. I went to see my friend Emma. She opened the door. She said, "Are you okay?" I said, "No. I need to talk." We sat in her kitchen. I told her everything. I said, "He has another woman. Her name is Rachel. I saw the messages." Emma was quiet. She gave me a cup of tea. She said, "You did not do anything wrong." I looked at my hands. They were shaking. I said, "I don't know what to do." Emma said, "Come stay here for a few days." I said, "Okay. Thank you." I went back home in the afternoon. Daniel was not there. I packed my clothes. I took my phone. I took my bag. I looked around the room. It was quiet. I put my house key on the table. Then I left. I stayed at Emma's house. I slept in her small room. It was warm and clean. She gave me food. She let me rest. She did not ask too many questions. I was thankful. Daniel sent many messages. He said, "Please talk to me." He said, "I am sorry." He said, "I miss you." But I did not reply. I was not ready. After 3 days, he called me. I did not answer. Then he sent one more message. It said, "I ended things with Rachel. Please come back." I read the message, but I did not believe it. I remembered his face when I asked him the truth. He did not say sorry right away. He did not stop until I saw the messages. He did not love me the way I loved him. One day, I went back to the apartment. Daniel was not home. I opened the door. I took more clothes. I took my books. I saw a photo of us on the wall. We looked happy in the photo, but it was not real. He was not honest. I put the photo in a drawer. I closed it. Then I left again. I did not cry. I did not wait. I walked slowly down the stairs. I walked outside. I took a deep breath. The air was cold, but I felt free. At night, I sat on Emma's couch. I drank warm tea. I looked at the sky from the window. I saw the stars. I felt sad, but also strong. I knew he would send more messages. I knew he would say more words, but I was not going back. The next morning, Daniel called again. He said, "Can we meet?" I said, "No. I need time." He said, "I will wait." I did not answer. Emma smiled at me. She said, "You are brave." I said, "No, I am just tired." She said, "You are still strong." I started to help around the house. I helped cook. I helped clean. I looked for a small place to stay. Emma said, "You can stay here more." I said, "Thank you, but I want my own room." I found a small flat near her house. It had one bed, one table, and a small kitchen. I moved in. It was quiet. I liked the quiet. I bought new sheets. I made tea every morning. I read simple books. I walked in the park. Daniel still tried to call. He left flowers at my door. He sent new messages. One message said, "I am not the same without you." But I said nothing. One day, he waited outside my new flat. I saw him from the window. He stood there with a box. He looked around. I closed the curtain. I turned off the light. After some time, he walked away. That night, I felt sad again, but I also felt safe. I made soup. I ate alone. I cleaned the kitchen. I went to bed early. My heart was quiet. I did not know what would happen next. I did not know if I would meet someone new. But I knew this: I did not want to live with lies. I did not want a husband who said "I love you" to me and someone else at the same time. I woke up early. I opened the window. The sun was out. The sky was clear. It was a new day. I made tea. I sat at the table. My phone was on the chair. I looked at it. There were new messages from Daniel. One message said, "I am sorry." Another one said, "Can I see you?" I put the phone down. I looked out the window again. I did not know what to say. I did not want to see him, but I wanted to hear the truth from him. I wanted to ask him why he hurt me. I picked up the phone. I sent one short message. It said, "We can meet at the park. One time only." He replied fast. "Thank you," he wrote. That afternoon, I put on my coat. I walked to the park. The wind was cold. The trees moved slowly. I saw Daniel waiting near a bench. He saw me and stood up. I walked to the bench. We both sat down. I did not smile. He did not smile. He said, "Thank you for coming." I said nothing. I looked at the ground. He said, "I know I did wrong." I stayed quiet. He looked at me and said, "I lied to you. I broke your trust. I am sorry." I said, "Why did you do it?" He looked down. He did not answer fast. Then he said, "I was not happy. I felt lost. I met someone new. I made a mistake." I said, "You had a wife. You had a home. Why didn't you speak to me?" He said, "I didn't want to hurt you, but I hurt you anyway. I know that." I looked at him. I said, "You looked at me every day. You said I love you, but you also said it to her." He said, "I ended it. I told her goodbye. I want you back." I shook my head. I said, "You should have thought about that before." He said, "Please give me one more chance." I said, "No. I gave you many chances. You lied every time." He looked sad. He said, "I still love you." I stood up. I looked at him one last time. I said, "Goodbye, Daniel." Then I walked away. He did not follow me. I walked home slowly. I looked at the people in the street. Some were laughing. Some were quiet. I felt calm. When I got home, I made tea. I sat on the floor and drank slowly. I looked at the wall. I felt quiet inside. The next morning, I cleaned my small flat. I washed the clothes. I swept the floor. I made toast and eggs. I opened the window. The air was fresh. I sat by the window. I listened to the birds. That week, I started walking more. I walked to the market. I walked to the park. I walked to the small lake nearby. One day, I saw a woman sitting on a bench. She looked my age. She smiled at me. I smiled back. Her name was Helen. She had a small dog. The dog jumped at me. I laughed. She said, He likes you. We talked for a few minutes. She lived on my street. She was kind. She said, I like your smile. We met again the next day. We walked in the park. We talked about food and music. We talked about simple things. I did not talk about Daniel. I was not ready. But I felt better with Helen. She was kind and funny. Some days she brought her dog. Some days she brought apples. I brought tea in a bottle. We sat on a bench and drank. My flat was small, but it was enough. I had a table, a chair, a bed, and a small kitchen. It was quiet. It was clean. It was mine. At night, I cooked dinner. I listened to soft music. I read simple books. I slept early. One evening, Daniel came to my door. I did not open it. I watched him from the window. He stood there for 5 minutes. Then he left. He sent one more message. It said, "Please forgive me." I did not reply. I put my phone in a drawer. I did not want to look at it. Days passed. I saw Helen again. She gave me flowers. She said, "You look happy today." I said, "I feel okay now." We walked around the lake. We talked about holidays and seasons. We talked about her dog. She asked, "Are you married?" I said, "I was. Not now." She looked at me. She said, "I'm sorry." I said, "It's okay." The next day, I bought a plant. I put it near the window. I watered it every morning. It made my room look nice. I started writing new words in a notebook. I wanted to learn new things. I wanted to keep my mind strong. I made a new routine. Wake up early, eat well, clean the house, take a walk, smile when I can. I saw children play outside. I saw old people sit on benches. I saw dogs run on the grass. I felt quiet and safe. One morning, I walked past my old street. I saw the building where I lived with Daniel. I stopped and looked at it, just for a minute. Then I walked away. I did not cry. I did not feel angry. I just felt done. That life was over. My new life had started. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.